alhamdulillah rabbil alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen, Sayyidina wa Mawlana Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Wa nashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah. Wa nashhadu anna Sayyidina wa Mawlana Muhammadin abduhu wa rasuluh. Sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa baraka wa sallama tasliman kathira. أما بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وقال ربكم ادعوني أستجب لكم إن الذين يستكبرون عن عبادتي سيدخلون جهنم داخلين صدق الله العظيم. وقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في حديث الدعاء مخ العبادة أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. My dear friends, we live in a world today where it is the culture to solely have a man's eyes set upon the means and material things. And success is only considered success if it is materialistic prosperity. And my dear friends, in such an atmosphere where man's eyes have a tendency to be set upon material things and means, then it is very easy for anyone in this environment to be distanced from the musabbibul asbab, the bestower of the means and the creator of all the creation, including the material means. It is very easy to be cut off from him unless one is vigilant about his or her iman, unless one is cautious and focused upon connecting with the Creator, connecting with the being that is the creator of the material means. And we see that and witness that the people who have their eyes set upon materialism and the materialistic means and the creation, other human beings and beings besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and when they attach their hopes to all these things besides Allah Azza wa Jal, then they develop a sort of anxiety in their hearts. An anxiety is created and there begins to generate in the individual a kind of lack of contentment. The person is very much void of contentment and is never satisfied. And unfortunately, many times the solution is sought from the material means again, and that person digs him or herself in a deeper hole and becomes even more distant from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because they're seeking the solution where the solution does not lie. They are seeking the solution in material means, whereas the solution lies in the creator of the material means. So when this happens, Nasullaha fanasiyahum, they forget Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgets them. Allah leaves them to their vices, and they continue to become even more distanced, more discontent, and more anxious about their future. And how can this person be like the one who is content and satisfied with the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and happy and pleased with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has bestowed upon him or her, and content, and has hopes in nothing but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and is connected with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and thus has no fear, because they have attached themselves to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the being whom we should be attached to. They have that. How can the aforementioned person and this person be the same? They're the difference between chalk and cheese. As Allah Azza wa Jal mentions, أَوَمَنْ كَانَ مَيْتًا فَأَحْيَيْنَاهُ وَجَعَلْنَا لَهُ نُورًا يَمْشِي بِهِ فِي النَّاسِ كَمَنْ مَثَلُهُ فِي الظُّلُمَاتِ لَيْسَ بِخَارِجٍ مِنْهَا. And can that person who is dead, who was dead, thus we gave him life, and we created for him a nur, a light, with which he walks amongst the people. Can he be like that person, the likes of that person who is in darknesses from which he will not come out of? Both individuals are upon opposite paths. One has attached and connected himself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and is in the light of Allah, in the light of guidance. He has a nur, and he is content with that, and he has no fear and anxiety, no worry of the future. He is content and has his tawakkul on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. On the other side of the coin, the other person is grim and anxious, discontent with the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and is lost in darkness from which it is very hard to come out of. Only Allah, through Allah's help, can that person be relieved from his or her situation and come out from the darkness into the light. And we see such people who are in darkness, that they, out of desperation, anxiety, discontentment, they will cheat, deceive, and slander others, breaking covenants, breaking promises to become satisfied, and thus become even more distanced from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when the believer is afflicted with any calamity, he knows that there is some wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala behind this, and accepts, despite being in a calamity, although he may be concerned about his connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or concerned for the upliftment of that calamity, and thus turns to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because he has that ta'alluq and that relationship, that deep bond with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But he is not worried, he is not restless, he is not discontent with the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because he knows that there is goodness in it for him, and he turns to none but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. And when we turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah becomes pleased. Allah becomes pleased. And Who else is there to turn to besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when all our needs are fulfilled by our Creator, who is the creator of the whole entire creation, all the universe, and the universe is beyond this one, the countless universes that are beyond this, or maybe beyond this universe. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sustaining everything. How can we attach ourselves to others besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Anyone who attaches himself or herself to anything besides Allah is really attaching themselves to something wherein there is no guarantee. Of course, naturally that person, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will put them into worries. That person will be anxious because he's not attaching himself onto something that is solid. And hence why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves that a person turns to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with dua. And the believer knows that he has power over nothing except with the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and through turning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, dua was silahul mu'min. This is why Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said dua is the weapon of a believer. And who can be more powerful than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? When Allah is on one side, nothing can harm him. Nothing can harm him. And Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, he said, ad-du'a huwa al-ibadah. Dua is in of itself ibadah. It is the purpose behind ibadah, that we turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what is ibadah? Ibadah is recognizing one's helplessness, that one is totally in need of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and humbling oneself in humility before that being, Allah Azza wa Jal, who is glorified, the sole one that is worthy of praise, the all-powerful, and an extreme love for that being. When a person humbles himself out of love and awe and glory of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah Azza wa Jal truly loves this the most. Allah really loves this, and this is the purpose of ibadah. Ad-du'a wa mukhul ibadah. Dua is the centerpiece of ibadah, as narrated in a hadith in Sunan al-Tirmidhi. Dua is the centerpiece of ibadah, because one humbles himself before his master and expresses his need before his master out of love and awe and glory and respect of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In another hadith, Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam mentions, which is related by Imam Tirmidhi rahimahullah in his Sunan, لَيْسَ شَيْءٌ أَكْرَمَ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ مِنَ الدُّعَاءِ. There's no thing, لَيْسَ شَيْءٌ, there's no thing that is more dear to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than dua. There is no thing that is more dear to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than dua. We should be very particular. This is why we should be very particular about turning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whether we are in calamities or happiness, whether we are in hardship or ease, we should always turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah and Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam also mentioned in the hadith, إِنَّ الدُّعَاءَ يَنْفَعُ مِمَّا نَزَلَ. And verily dua benefits a person from that calamity which has been which that person has been afflicted with, وَمِمَّا لَمْ يَنْزِلْ, and from that calamity which has not yet been sent upon, which has not yet descended. فَعَلَيْكُمْ عِبَادُ اللَّهِ بِالدُّعَاءِ. This is incumbent upon you, as servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with dua. So, and this hadith is also mentioned in Sunan al-Tirmidhi. So, we should turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah Azza wa Jal wants for us to turn towards Him and by way of dua gain closeness to Him and attach ourselves to none but Him and to build a strong bond and connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if we fail to do so, Allah Azza wa Jal becomes displeased. مَنْ لَمْ يَسْأَلِ اللَّهَ يَغْضَبْ عَلَيْهِ. It is mentioned in hadith, again in Sunan al-Tirmidhi, whoever does not beseech Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ask Allah of his needs, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala becomes displeased with him. Also, it is reported in Hadith Qudsi on the 30 of Sayyidina Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, which is mentioned in Sahih Muslim. Allah Azza wa Jal says, يا عبادي كلكم ضال إلا من هديته فاستهدوني أهدكم. O my slaves, all of you are deviant except him whom I have guided. فاستهدوني, thus seek guidance from me, I will guide you. O my servants, all of you are hungry except he whom I have fed. So seek sustenance from me, I will feed you. يا عبادي كلكم عار إلا من كسوت فاستقصوني أقصكم. O my servants, all of you are naked except him whom I have clothed. So seek clothing from me, I will dress you. يا عبادي إنكم تخطئون بالليل والنهار وأنا أغفر الذنوب جميعا فاستغفروني أغفر لكم. O my servants, verily you sin by night and by day, and I forgive all sins. So seek forgiveness from me, I will forgive you. Allah Azza wa Jal wants for us to turn to Him for our needs, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to see us humble ourselves and lower ourselves and express our need in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَقَالَ رَبُّكُمْ وَدُعُونِي أَسْتَجِبْ لَكُمْ, as Allah says. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam quoted the ayat al-kareem after the hadith, الدعاء هو العبادة. The dua in of itself is ibadah. He said, وَقَالَ رَبُّكُمْ وَدُعُونِي أَسْتَجِبْ لَكُمْ. O my say, O Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, وَقَالَ رَبُّكُمْ وَدُعُونِي أَسْتَجِبْ لَكُمْ, and your Lord says, وَدُعُونِي, beseech me, I will accept. أَسْتَجِبْ لَكُمْ, I will accept from you. أَسْتَجِبْ لَكُمْ, provided we fulfill the conditions of dua, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will accept from us, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will accept us if we humble ourselves before Him and express our needs by way of dua before Him. Allah Azza wa Jal automatically will grant us acceptance. And Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anh, he mentioned something very interesting. He says, I am not concerned with acceptance. If I'm only concerned about turning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in dua when I receive the tawfiq of dua, when I make dua and have the tawfiq for dua, then acceptance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will come with it. And Mutarrif bin Abdullah rahimahullah mentioned, I looked upon the treasures and of khair and pondered upon them, such as salah, fasting. Then however, I realized that all of them are in the power and the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Only Allah can bless us with the tawfiq to carry them out. as they ought to be carried out. And that thing which is in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you only have power over that if you beseech Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and request Him for that thing that you, for that khair, for that amal of khair, for that piety, righteousness, then He blesses you with it. And also in another hadith on the authority of Sayyidina Anas radiallahu anhu, it is reported in Mustadrak Hakim that, O people, do not become lazy, ajiz, and making dua. As long as there is dua, you will not be destroyed. And there are many du'as in the books of hadith. One very good piece of work is by Mullah Ali Qari rahimahullah, Al-Hizb Al-A'zam. If you read this, insha'Allah, this has many du'as of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam that he, when Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam besought Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he turned to Allah, a good amount of du'as of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam will be found therein. And for every occasion there is a du'a, and by way of which we can thank Allah and turn to Allah, whether in times of distress or in times of happiness. There is dua for every occasion, for every small amal, even for going to the toilet, eating, sleeping, etc. One can spend every moment in ibadah by the blessings of dua. There is one hadith on the authority of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri radiyallahu anhu and the Sunan of Imam Abu Dawud, where Sayyidina Abu Umama was related of him, who was an Ansari Sahabi. He was in the masjid, and such a time when people weren't there, but he was sitting there outside the times of the Salah, or when the Sahaba usually congregated in the masjid. And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam went to him and asked him, Ya Abu Umama, I find you at such a time in the masjid where it is not the time for prayer. Then Abu Umama radiyallahu anhu, he mentioned that continuous worries and debts have overpowered me. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, I will teach you some kalimat, dua in other words, and by way of which all your worries will be uplifted, and your debts will be paid off. And he said, O Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, please do teach me them. And then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, said, in the morning and evening, so meaning after Fajr and after Asr, say these kalimat: Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-hammi wal-huzn. O Allah, verily I seek refuge in you from sadness and worries, anxiety. Wa a'udhu bika min al-ajzi wal-kasl, and I seek refuge in you from foolishness and laziness. Wa a'udhu bika min al-jubni wal-bukhl, and I seek refuge in you from cowardness and miserliness. Wa a'udhu bika min ghalabati ad-dayn wa qahri al-rijal, and I seek refuge in you from the overpowerment of debts and the dominance of people. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught him this dua. And Sayyidina Abu Umama radiyallahu anhu relates that when I started reciting this dua, my worries and my sadness and worries were removed, and my debts were paid off. So this is a cure, a very potent cure for depression, anxiety, and also the payment of debts, which one should insha'Allah turn to, because the relief from worries and anxiety as well as depression and sadness is only in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the paying of debts when it seems that you're helpless, and it may even seem impossible to you, but Allah Azza wa Jal makes the impossible possible. Also, we should turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and seek His forgiveness, especially at a time when we feel down, sad, and anxious. And many times this is because of a sin that is committed. That anxiety begins to crop up in one's heart. That person feels helpless. And if one is distanced from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or doesn't feel content within him or herself, then the first step is tawbah and istighfar. And through the barakah of tawbah and istighfar, that person will be blessed with above all Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that person will see the barakat of this in his worldly life as well. It is related in a hadith on the authority of Abdullah bin Abbas radiallahu anh, and the sunan of Imam Abu Dawud and Imam Ibn Majah rahimahumullah, that man lazim al-istighfar ja'ala Allahu lahu min kulli dhiqin makhraja. Whoever holds fast to istighfar, seeking forgiveness and tawbah, Allah Azza wa Jal will grant him a way out of every difficulty. Wa min kulli hammin farja, and a relief from all anxieties. Wa razaqahu min haythu la yahtasib, and He will grant him rizq and sustenance from that place that he would have never imagined. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we should turn to Him for all our needs, our dini needs, our spiritual needs, as well as our physical needs. And also, one point that is worthy of mention is that dua has some conditions for acceptance. Firstly, that person should not be one who is associating partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and should be sincere in the matter of tawheed and oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that Allah alone is the bestower of everything, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone will remove the difficulty from him. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not forgive shirk and associating partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inna Allah la yaghfiru an yushraka bih. And also the second condition is that when making dua, his heart should not be negligent, and should have his heart focused upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The focus of one's heart should be with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One should be present in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will present Himself to you, and your presence is nothing compared to the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You will be astonished at how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will answer and create the means for you and open ways for you. And this is very important. When we make dua, we should follow certain etiquettes. Firstly, we should commence our dua with the hamd and thana of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, praising and glorifying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, such as Surah Fatiha. Also, thereafter we should recite salawat wa salam upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and recite Durood Sharif. And before anything, we should seek Allah's forgiveness, because it may be because of some sin there is a barrier between us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we need to eliminate those barriers with the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by asking and turning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in istighfar and tawbah, and seeking forgiveness and turning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and most humbly with simple words from the heart, sincerely ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's help, and thereafter conclude the dua with salah wa salam upon our Master Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam by way of durood sharif, and then the hamd and thana of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, such as wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, and combined with the present heart, insha'Allah, Allah Azza wa Jal will make the impossible possible and will open doors for you in a way that you had never imagined. In a narration on the authority of Sayyidina Abu Hurairah, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam is reported to have said, "O people, you should make dua in such a way that you have yaqeen, certainty that your dua will be accepted, and know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not accept the dua of a negligent and an unfocused heart." Sayyidina Yahya bin Mu'adh rahimahullah, he mentions, he says, that person who has connected his heart to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, his dua will never be rejected. So we should have a conviction in our hearts that Allah will answer my prayer, because Allah is the most generous, and He very earnestly waits for us to turn to Him. He wants us to turn to Him. He wants us to be successful and prosperous. And the dua that is related to hidayah and guidance is specifically never rejected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we should not sometimes we feel that I want that specific thing that I'm making dua for, but it may not be good for you. It may be that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses you with something else in return, such as, for example, you may be asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for wealth, but He knows that wealth will not be good for you. He may give you ilm and knowledge in return. Or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may very well answer that dua, and also provided that dua is a dua that is permissible and halal. Or it may be that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uplifts a calamity instead of that thing that you are asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of. Or Allah Azza wa Jal may not answer that specific dua, instead bless you with something better for you in the hereafter. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the all-knowing, all-hearing. Allah knows what's best for us, and we should be, and we have to be content with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decides, for us. Accept Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed, and not be anxious about the future, because all that will come that is destined and will come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and let Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala dictate the course of life, and let Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us with whatever He wants to bless us with. Is up to Him. A person that is pleased with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has connected himself with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He doesn't want anything except for what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants for him anyway. So what is there to be worried about? What is there to be anxious about? Allah knows best. Allah plans, and He is the best of planners. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the tawfiq to realize and understand the importance of connecting our hearts with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to turn towards Him. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the tawfiq to ask Allah for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the tawfiq to beseech Allah for the sake of Allah, for Allah. Beseech Allah and ask Allah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ask Allah, oh Allah, become mine and make me yours. And when a person becomes Allah's, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala becomes his beloved, then that person doesn't look at anywhere besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When he beseeches Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is for the sake of Allah. And all he desires is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and nothing else. And he is completely content and satisfied, and there is no name of anxiety as to what will come, because that person in the end has the most important thing in his life, which is attachment and connection and a deep love bond with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all the tawfiq and ability to connect ourselves with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the way that Allah Azza wa Jal wants us to do so. أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم ولكافة المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم.